She thought she had the flu. She thought she was just unlucky when her car died in the middle of a storm. But Tessa Bennett wasn't sick. She was being hunted. And when she knocked on the door of room 109, begging a terrifying stranger for just one night of safety, she made a mistake that would change history. She looked into the eyes of a drifter named Cal and saw a savior. She didn't know she was looking into the eyes of Felicity Blackwood, the ruthless Alpha King in hiding. And he just found the one woman he was sworn to destroy. The rain didn't just fall in Wyoming. It hammered the earth like a judgment. Tessa Bennett gripped the steering wheel of her dying 2008 Honda Civic, her knuckles white, her vision swimming in a haze of grey and fever yellow. The dashboard clock read 11:42 p.m. The temperature gauge was spiking, mimicking her own body. She was burning up. Every joint in her body felt like it had been filled with broken glass. The flu had started 3 days ago, right after the pack dinner celebrating her stepbrother Jared's engagement. It had started with a headache, then escalated to this, a bone-deep agony that made shifting gears feel like lifting a boulder. Just get to the border, she told herself, her teeth chattering so hard she bit her tongue. Get to neutral territory. Get away from them. The car sputtered, heaved a mechanical death rattle and died. Silence rushed in, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the relentless drumming of the rain on the roof. Tessa sat there for a moment, the heat radiating off her skin, fogging up the windows. She was 5 miles from the nearest town, but she had seen a neon sign flickering through the downpour about 100 yards back, the Rusty Spur Motel. She grabbed her duffel bag, containing a change of clothes, a bottle of water, and $300 in crumpled cash, and pushed the door open. The wind nearly tore the door from its hinges. Tessa stumbled into the mud. Her legs felt like jelly. She wasn't just sick, her equilibrium was shot. The world tilted violently to the left. She dragged herself toward the flickering vacancy sign, the rain soaking her thin hoodie instantly, plastering her dark hair to her skull. The motel office was dark. A handwritten note taped to the glass. Read, "Manager out. Emergency only." Tessa pounded on the glass, but the darkness inside remained absolute. She turned, scanning the row of rooms. Most were dark, but light spilled from behind the curtains of room 109. A massive black Ford F-250 was parked outside it, covered in mud and grime. She didn't want to do this. Her instincts, the wolf she hadn't been able to contact in 3 days, were screaming at her to hide. But the cold was seeping into her marrow, and the fever was cooking her brain. If she stayed out here, she would die of exposure or the sickness. She stumbled to room 109. She raised a trembling fist and knocked. "Please be an old lady. Please be a nice trucker." The door opened. It wasn't an old lady. The man standing there took up the entire doorframe. He was shirtless, holding a towel as if he'd just stepped out of a shower. Scars crisscrossed his torso, jagged, ugly white lines that told stories of violence, not accidents. He had a military cut, dark stubble, and eyes the color of oxidized copper. They were cold, assessing, and utterly dangerous. He looked down at her, his expression unreadable. He smelled of rain, cheap motel soap, and something distinct, power. Even with her senses dulled by sickness, the air around him felt heavy, like the atmosphere before a lightning strike. Tessa's voice cracked. She swayed, grabbing the doorframe to keep from face-planting onto his boots. "I'm sick. My car died." The man didn't move. He didn't offer to help. He just watched her, his eyes narrowing slightly as he took in her scent. "The office is closed," he said. His voice was a low rumble, vibrating in her chest. "I know," Tessa whispered, a tear of frustration mixing with the rain on her cheek. I can't walk to town. Please, I have money." She fumbled in her pocket with shaking hands, pulling out a wet wad of bills. "I just need to sit down. Can I stay one night, just on the floor?" "I won't bother you." The man looked at the money, then back at her face. He saw the unnatural flush of her cheeks, the dilated pupils, the black veins faintly tracing their way up her neck. His jaw tightened. He recognized the signs. It wasn't the flu. It was wolfsbane poisoning. High grade, the kind used to execute traitors. He should slam the door. He was Felicity Blackwood, the Alpha King, currently presumed dead by half the country and hunted by the other half. He was in hiding. Letting a dying wolf into his room, a wolf from a pack he didn't recognize, was a tactical suicide. But then Tessa's eyes rolled back in her head. Her knees buckled. "Please," she breathed, her voice barely audible. "I don't want to die in the rain." Felicity cursed under his breath. Before she hit the concrete, his hand shot out, catching her by the front of her hoodie. She was alarmingly light, burning hot to the touch. He hauled her inside and kicked the door shut, locking out the storm. The room was sparse. A double bed with a sagging mattress, a peeling laminate table, and a TV from the 90s. Felicity dropped Tessa onto the bed. She curled up instantly, shivering so violently the bed springs squeaked. "Water," she gasped. Felicity grabbed a bottle from the nightstand and cracked the seal. He sat on the edge of the bed, lifting her head. "Drink." Slowly. She guzzled it like a dying animal. He watched her closely. Now that she was out of the rain, he could smell her scent underneath the sickness. It was faint, vanilla and cedar. Bennett, he realized. The scent profile was distinct to the Bennett pack of the northern Rockies. His grip on the water bottle tightened, the plastic crinkling loudly. The Bennett pack was one of the key conspirators in the coup that had forced him into exile 6 months ago. Her alpha, a man named Jared Bennett, had personally put a silver bullet in Felicity's shoulder, and now a Bennett female was in his bed. "Who did this to you?" Felicity asked, his voice devoid of sympathy. Tessa coughed, wiping her mouth. She looked up at him, her vision clearing slightly. He was terrifying up close. The scar running from his collarbone to his hip was jagged and thick. "Nobody," she lied, her voice raspy. "I caught a bug." "Don't lie to me," Felicity growled. He stood up and paced the small room, the agitation radiating off him. "You have wolfsbane in your veins. You're being purged. Who poisoned you?" Tessa froze. How did this random drifter know about wolfsbane? Humans thought wolves were myths. "Who are you?" she whispered, fear spiking through the fever. "Call me Cal," he said, using the alias on his fake ID. "And you answer my question if you want to stay in this room." Tessa closed her eyes. She was too tired to fight. "Jared, my stepbrother. He took over the pack after Dad died last month. I'm the only one left who could challenge his claim to the land titles." Felicity stopped pacing. Jared. The name made his wolf snarl in the back of his mind. So the traitor was cleaning house, killing his own stepsister to secure his power. He looked at the girl, Tessa. She was defenseless, dying, and unaware that the man standing over her could snap her neck with one hand. "He put it in the wine," Tessa mumbled, delirium setting in again. "At the toast. Everyone watched me drink it." She let out a dry, humorless laugh. "I thought it tasted like cork." She began to convulse. The poison was reaching the critical stage. If she didn't sweat it out or get an antidote, her heart would stop within the hour. Felicity stood at a crossroads. He could leave. He should leave. She was a Bennett. Her family's blood money had paid for the mercenaries hunting him. But the code of the Alpha King, The ancient code, before the politics and the wars, was simple. Protect the pack. And right now, in this crappy motel room, she was the only pack he had. "I can't believe I'm doing this," Felicity muttered. He went to his duffel bag, a tactical military bag hidden under the sink. He dug past the Glock 9A and the stacks of cash until he found a small leather pouch. Inside were vials of herbs and emergency tinctures. He pulled out a dark blue vial. Mithril bloom extract, a universal neutralizer. He only had 2 doses left. He walked back to the bed. Tessa was trashing now, clawing at her throat. "Hey!" he barked, pinning her wrists to the mattress with one hand. She was strong for a female wolf, even a sick one, but against him, she was a child. "Look at me." She stared up at him, her eyes wild, the irises flashing gold as her wolf panicked. "Drink this. It's going to hurt like hell, but it will keep you alive." He uncorked the vial with his teeth and tipped the bitter liquid into her mouth. She gagged, trying to spit it out, but he held her jaw shut until she swallowed. "Breathe," he commanded. "Fight it, Tessa. If you want to kill Jared, you have to survive tonight." The mention of revenge seemed to anchor her. She stopped struggling. Then the pain hit. She screamed, a raw, guttural sound that Felicity smothered with his hand. The antidote was warring with the poison, burning through her bloodstream. Her body arched off the mattress. Felicity didn't let go. He climbed onto the bed, positioning himself behind her, pulling her back against his chest. He wrapped his massive arms around her, locking her in place. "I've got you," he whispered into her hair, his voice dropping into the alpha command tone, a frequency that bypassed the conscious mind and spoke directly to the wolf. "Be calm. Heal." Tessa's body responded to the tone instantly. She slumped against him, sobbing, her sweat soaking his bare skin. For 6 hours the storm raged outside, and the fever raged inside. Felicity didn't sleep. He held the sister of his enemy, listening to her heart rate slow from a frantic rabbit beat to a steady rhythm. At around 4 a.m., she finally fell into a deep, natural sleep. Felicity leaned his head back against the headboard, exhausted. He looked down at her. She was beautiful, in a tragic, broken way. Pale skin, dark lashes, a stubborn jawline. He gently moved a strand of wet hair from her face. "You have no idea who I am, do you, Tessa Bennett?" he whispered to the silence. He reached for his phone on the nightstand. It was a burner. He had one message from his beta, Marcus, who was hiding in Chicago. Message: "They tracked the credit card. They know you're in Wyoming. Move." Felicity stared at the screen. He needed to leave. Now. Before the sun came up. He looked at Tessa. If he left her, Jared's men would find her. If he took her, he would slow himself down. He swung his legs off the bed, careful not to wake her. He packed his bag in 30 seconds. He put on a flannel shirt and his boots. He stood at the door, hand on the knob. He looked back. She looked small in the center of the bed. Defenseless. "Damn it," he growled. He let go of the doorknob, walked back to the chair in the corner, and sat down. He pulled the Glock from his bag and set it on his lap, facing the door. He wasn't going anywhere. Not tonight. Tessa woke up to the smell of gun oil and stale coffee. For a terrifying second, she didn't know where she was. The ceiling was stained with water damage, and the sheets were scratchy against her skin. Then the memories of the night slammed into her. The rain, the fever, the stranger. She sat up, gasping. The pain in her joints was gone, replaced by a dull, heavy ache like the phantom soreness after a marathon. She was alive. "You're awake." She snapped her head toward the corner of the room. The man, Cal, was sitting in the peeling vinyl chair, fully dressed in dark jeans and a flannel shirt. His boots were laced tight. He was wiping down the slide of a Glock 9 Aust with a rag, his movements precise and practiced. Tessa pulled the thin blanket up to her chin, suddenly aware of how intimate the night had been. She remembered his arms around her. She remembered his voice in her ear, commanding her to live. "You stayed," she said softly. "I fell asleep," Felicity lied without looking up. He reassembled the weapon with a sharp clack-slide sound that made Tessa jump. "How's the head?" "Better. Alive." She swung her legs off the bed. She was still in her damp clothes from yesterday. "I owe you. Everything. The hospital would have asked questions I couldn't answer. The hospital would have called the police, and since you're running from a pack alpha, the police would have just handed you over to him." Felicity stood up, holstering the gun at the small of his back. "You need to move. Checkout is at 11, but we're leaving now." "We?" Tessa blinked. "No, I can't ask you to do anything else. You've done enough. I'll just get in my car and—" Felicity walked to the window and ripped the curtains open. "Come here." Tessa walked over on shaky legs. She looked out into the parking lot. The rain had stopped, leaving the asphalt slick and black under the morning grey. Her breath hitched. Her 2008 Honda Civic was a charred, smoking skeleton. The windows were blown out, the paint blistered and peeled. Someone had firebombed it. "They found it about 2 hours ago," Felicity said, his voice flat. "I watched them from the window. 2 guys. Pros. They torched the car to flush you out. They're sitting in a grey sedan across the street at the diner, watching the motel office." Tessa's knees gave out again, but she caught herself on the windowsill. "Jared found me." "He found the car," Felicity corrected. "He doesn't know you're in room 109 yet, but he will once the maid service starts knocking." He turned to her, his copper eyes hard. "You have 2 choices, Tessa. You can walk out that door alone and be in the trunk of their car in 5 minutes. Or you can get in my truck, keep your head down, and pray I don't regret this." Tessa looked at him. He was dangerous, lethal. He carried himself with an arrogance that usually got men killed, yet on him it felt earned. But when she looked at the burnt remains of her life in the parking lot, she knew he was her only option. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, searching his face. "You don't know me." Felicity looked away, his jaw tightening. "Because you're my enemy, and I need to know why your brother betrayed me," he thought. "Because if I let you die, I become the monster they say I am." "I don't like bullies," he said simply. "Grab your bag. We're leaving out the back." Getting to the truck was an exercise in terror. They slipped out the bathroom window of the motel room, dropping into the muddy alleyway behind the building. Felicity moved with the silence of a ghost, checking corners before signaling her to move. They reached his F250. It was a beast of a machine, lifted, with tinted windows dark enough to be illegal. He opened the passenger door. "Get on the floor," he ordered. "Stay down until we hit the highway." Tessa climbed in and curled up in the footwell. The floor mat smelled of earth and pine. The engine roared to life, a deep, guttural growl that vibrated through the floorboards. Felicity threw the truck into gear. He didn't speed. He drove casually around the block, merging onto the main road. From her position on the floor, Tessa watched his hand on the gear shift. It was large, scarred, and steady. He wasn't nervous. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. But his heart rate, which she could hear with her wolf senses now that the fever was gone, was resting. "Are they following?" she whispered. Felicity glanced at the rearview mirror. The grey sedan pulled out of the diner parking lot. but it went toward the motel, not after them. "We're clear for now," he said. "You can get up." Tessa scrambled into the seat, buckling her seatbelt instantly. She looked out the window as the landscape blurred, rolling plains giving way to the jagged silhouette of the mountains. "Where are we going?" "North," Felicity said. "I have a safe house near the Idaho border. We'll regroup there." "I have money," Tessa blurted out. "I can pay for gas. I can pay you for—" "Keep your money," he snapped, harsher than he intended. He took a breath. "I don't need your cash, Tessa." Silence stretched between them, heavy and awkward. "You're a wolf," Tessa said eventually. It wasn't a question. "You knew about the wolfsbane. You have the speed. But I don't recognize your scent. You're not from the Rockies." Felicity gripped the wheel. He had to be careful. "I'm a rogue. I move around." "A rogue with military-grade antidotes and the combat awareness of an enforcer?" Tessa raised an eyebrow. "Who were you before you were Cal?" Felicity looked at her. Her eyes were intelligent, probing. She wasn't just a pampered alpha's daughter. She was sharp. "I was a soldier," he said, which was technically true. "And right now, I'm the guy driving the getaway car, so stop asking questions." Tessa bit her lip and looked forward. "Jared, he killed my father." The confession hung in the air. Felicity's eyes flickered to her. "The official report said heart failure," Felicity said. He knew the report because he had read it while tracking the coup members. "My father was the strongest alpha in the state. His heart was fine," Tessa said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Jared wanted the seat. He wanted the alliances. He's working with someone powerful. I heard him on the phone the night of the funeral. He was talking about the Blackwood problem." Felicity nearly drove off the road. He kept his face neutral, but his wolf snarled inside him. The Blackwood problem. That was him. They were talking about him. "What did he say about it?" Felicity asked, trying to sound casual. "He said the king was dead, but the body was never found. He was worried that if the king ever came back, the Bennett pack would be first on the chopping list because of what they did." Tessa shook her head. "I don't know what he meant. We were loyal to the crown. My dad loved King Felicity." Felicity felt a strange sensation in his chest, a pang of guilt. He had assumed the entire Bennett family was in on the betrayal. But here was Tessa, claiming her father was loyal, claiming she was innocent. If she was telling the truth, then Jared had murdered his own father to align the pack with the usurpers. "You think the king is alive?" Felicity asked quietly. Tessa looked out the window at the passing pines. "I hope so, because if he is, he's the only one strong enough to kill my brother." Felicity tightened his grip on the wheel until the leather creaked. "Yeah," he muttered. "I bet he is." They had been driving for 3 hours when the mood shifted. They were on a desolate stretch of 2-lane highway, winding through a canyon. Steep rock faces rose on one side, a drop-off into a rushing river on the other. It was beautiful and deadly, a perfect ambush point. Felicity sensed them before he saw them. The air pressure changed. A scent drifted through the vents, ozone and burnt rubber. "Tessa," Felicity said, his voice calm but commanding. "Put your seatbelt on tight. Brace your legs against the dash." "What? Why?" "We picked up a tail." He checked the side mirror. 2 black SUVs were coming up fast behind them, weaving through the light traffic. They weren't hiding anymore. They were closing the gap. "Is it them?" Tessa twisted in her seat, panic rising. "It's not the gray sedan. These are heavy hitters, Escalades, armored." Felicity shifted the truck into sport mode, flooring the accelerator. The diesel engine roared, and the truck surged forward, pushing 90 miles per hour. "They must have tracked your phone," Felicity cursed himself. "Did you turn it off?" It's in my bag. The battery died yesterday," Tessa stammered. "GPS works even when the battery is dead if they have the right tech," Felicity growled. He grabbed her bag from the back seat with one hand and tossed it out the window. It tumbled onto the asphalt, disappearing behind them. "My clothes! Buy new ones!" he barked. The first SUV made its move. It surged alongside them in the passing lane, trying to ram the F-250 toward the guardrail and the cliff edge. "Hold on!" Felicity shouted. He didn't shy away. He turned into the skid. He slammed the heavy steel body of his F-250 into the side of the Escalade. Metal screamed against metal, sparks showering the road. The impact was bone-jarring. Tessa screamed, covering her head. Felicity held the line. His truck was modified for this. The Escalade wasn't. The SUV wobbled, overcorrected, and spun out, slamming into the rock face behind them. "One down," Felicity gritted out. But the second SUV was smarter. It didn't try to ram. The sunroof opened, and a man popped out, holding a sawed-off shotgun. "Get down!" Felicity shoved Tessa's head into his lap. Boom! The back windshield of the truck shattered, raining glass over the cabin. "They're shooting! They're actually shooting!" Tessa yelled, her voice muffled against Felicity's thigh. "They aren't trying to capture you anymore, sweetheart. They're cleaning up loose ends." Felicity saw a turnout ahead, a gravel logging road blocked by a metal gate. It was his only chance. He couldn't outrun them on the straightaway, not with them shooting out his tires. He slammed on the brakes, drifting the massive truck sideways. He smashed through the metal gate, the lock snapping like a twig, and roared up the gravel path into the dense forest. The SUV followed, bouncing violently on the uneven terrain. Felicity drove like a madman, dodging trees and boulders. The truck shook violently. Suddenly, the front tire blew. The steering wheel jerked from his hands. The truck careened to the left, sliding into a ditch and slamming into a massive oak tree with a sickening crunch. The airbags deployed, filling the cabin with white dust and silence. Felicity groaned, shaking his head to clear the ringing in his ears. He looked down. Tessa was coughing, pinned under the airbag, but she looked whole. "Tessa, can you move?" I think so," she wheezed. "Get out. Run into the trees. Hide." Felicity punched his own door open, falling out onto the pine needles. "What about you?" Tessa scrambled out the passenger side, stumbling. "I'm going to end this." The black SUV screeched to a halt 20 yards down the trail. 4 men got out. They were big, shifters, enforcers. They wore tactical vests and carried batons and silver knives. Felicity stood up. He rolled his neck, cracking the vertebrae. He checked his gun, empty. He tossed it aside. He didn't want to shift. If he shifted, his wolf was distinct. Massive, jet black, with eyes like burning copper. They would know instantly that he was the king, and if they radioed that back to Jared before they died, his element of surprise was gone. He would have to do this the hard way, in human skin. "Cal, run!" Tessa screamed from the tree line. "Stay back, Tessa!" Felicity roared. The command in his voice was so powerful, the leaves on the trees seemed to shiver. The 4 men fanned out, circling him. The leader, a scarred wolf with a shaved head, smirked. "End of the road, Drifter. Give us the girl and we'll make it quick." Felicity didn't smile. He stepped forward. The air around him began to distort, the sheer pressure of his alpha aura leaking out despite his control. "You made a mistake," Felicity said, his voice low and terrifying. "You touched what's mine." The leader lunged, swinging a silver knife at Felicity's throat. Felicity moved faster than a human eye could track. He caught the man's wrist, twisted it with a sickening snap, and drove his own elbow into the man's throat. The leader dropped, choking, incapacitated instantly. The other three roared and rushed him. It was a massacre. Tessa watched from behind a tree, her hand over her mouth. She had seen pack fights before. She had seen alphas fight. But she had never seen anything like this. Cal didn't fight like a brawler. He fought like a machine. He dodged a baton swing, swept the attacker's legs, and kicked him into a tree with enough force to crack the bark. He took a punch to the ribs from the third guy, barely flinching, before grabbing the man by the vest and headbutting him into unconsciousness. The last man, seeing his three comrades broken on the ground in less than 20 seconds, hesitated. His eyes went wide. He smelled it now, the power, the sheer, overwhelming dominance. "You," the man stammered, backing away. "You're an alpha, a prime." Felicity walked toward him, blood trickling from a cut on his brow. He looked like a god of war. "Who sent you?" Felicity asked. Jared Bennett," the man squeaked. "Tell Jared," Felicity whispered, leaning in close, "that he missed." He knocked the man out with a single precise hook to the jaw. Silence returned to the forest, broken only by the hissing of the truck's radiator. Felicity stood over the bodies, his chest heaving. He wiped the blood from his eye and turned to look for Tessa. She stepped out from the trees. She looked terrified. Not of the attackers, of him. She walked slowly toward him, stopping 5 feet away. She looked at the carnage, then up at his eyes. "That wasn't a soldier's fighting style," she whispered, "and that wasn't a rogue's aura." Felicity sighed. The adrenaline was fading, leaving him exhausted. He walked over to the SUV the attackers had arrived in. It was still running. "Get in their car, Tessa." "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice rising. "Don't tell me Cal. Who are you really?" Felicity opened the driver's door of the SUV and looked back at her. The secret was becoming a burden, but he couldn't drop it yet. Not until they were safe. "I'm the only chance you have of seeing the sunrise tomorrow," he said. "Get in." Tessa hesitated, her instincts warring with her logic. Finally, she marched past him and climbed into the passenger seat. As Felicity put the stolen SUV into reverse, leaving the unconscious hit squad in the dirt, Tessa stared at his profile. She realized something that made her blood run cold. He moved like royalty. He fought like a monster, and he protected her like a mate. She was falling in love with him, and she had a terrible feeling that when she found out his real name, it would break her heart. The safe house was less of a house and more of a fortress disguised as a log cabin. Located deep in the Sawtooth National Forest, it was accessible only by a dirt track that looked like a deer trail. Felicity drove the stolen SUV into the hidden garage carved into the hillside, the heavy steel door rumbling shut behind them, sealing them into darkness before the motion sensor lights flickered on. Silence fell. The adrenaline that had sustained them through the ambush was fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. "We're safe here," Felicity said, killing the engine. "The walls are lead-lined. No GPS signals get out. No thermal imaging gets in." Tessa didn't move immediately. She sat in the passenger seat, staring at the concrete wall. Her hands were shaking. "You have a lead-lined bunker," she stated, her voice hollow. "You fought 4 enforcers and didn't break a sweat. You carry military-grade antidotes." She turned her head slowly to look at him. "Just tell me one thing, Cal. Are you a criminal?" Felicity looked at her. He saw the fear in her eyes, not of the situation, but of him. She was wondering if she had traded a murderer for a monster. "No," he said firmly. "I'm not a criminal. I'm the guy who cleans up the mess." He opened his door. "Come on. You need food, and I need to stitch this cut." The cabin upstairs was surprisingly domestic. There was a fireplace, a leather couch, and a kitchen stocked with non-perishables. While Felicity went to the bathroom to find a first aid kit, Tessa roamed the living room. It was impersonal. No photos, no knickknacks. But there was a bookshelf. She ran her finger along the spines. Clausewitz on War, the history of lycanthropic law, architectural blueprints. "Who is this guy?" she whispered to herself. Felicity walked back into the room, shirtless again. The cut above his eye had stopped bleeding, but the gash on his ribs, from the baton strike he'd taken to protect her, was turning an ugly shade of purple-black. "Sit," Tessa commanded, pointing to the couch. Her voice trembled, but she held her ground. "I might not be a doctor, but I was the pack healer's assistant for 2 years. Let me look at that." Felicity hesitated, then sat. He leaned back, closing his eyes as Tessa opened the first aid kit. Her hands were gentle. She cleaned the wound on his brow with alcohol. He didn't flinch. She traced the bruise on his ribs with her fingertips, checking for fractures. "Nothing broken," she murmured, "but you're going to be colorful tomorrow." "I've had worse," Felicity grunted. "I bet you have." Tessa paused, her hand lingering on his chest, right over his heart. It beat slow and strong, a heavy rhythm that seemed to calm her own racing pulse. The proximity was dizzying. He smelled of rain, pine, and that overwhelming, masculine scent of power. "My father used to talk about the Alpha King," Tessa said softly, keeping her eyes on his bruise. He said Felicity Blackwood was the only alpha who understood that strength wasn't about violence, it was about stability. Felicity went rigid under her touch. "Is that so?" "Yeah. Dad said the king was a hard man, maybe even cruel when he had to be. But he was fair." Tessa dipped a cotton ball in antiseptic. "When news came that the king was dead," my father cried. I'd never seen him cry before. He knew what was coming. He knew men like Jared would rise up like weeds once the gardener was gone. Felicity opened his eyes. He stared at the ceiling, fighting the lump in his throat. He had spent the last 6 months believing the entire Bennett pack had turned on him. Hearing this, hearing that the old alpha had mourned him, shifted something in his chest. "Maybe the king wasn't as good as your father thought," Felicity said hoarsely. "Maybe he was just a man who didn't see the knife coming." "Maybe," Tessa said. She finished cleaning the wound and taped a gauze pad over it. She pulled back, her eyes meeting his. "But I wish he was here. I think he's the only one who could stand next to you and not look small." The compliment hung in the air, heavy and charged. Felicity looked at her, really looked at her. She was disheveled, her hoodie stained with mud, her hair a mess, and she was the most captivating thing he had ever seen. The pull was magnetic. His wolf was pacing inside him, scratching at the door, screaming, "Mate, mine, claim her!" He leaned forward. Tessa didn't pull away. Her breath hitched, her gaze dropped to his lips, then back to his eyes. "Tessa," he warned, his voice a low rumble. "You don't know who I am." "I know you saved me," she whispered. "I know you didn't leave me." She leaned in. Felicity wanted to kiss her more than he wanted his next breath. He wanted to wrap her in his scent and never let go. But he couldn't. Not while he was lying to her. It was a violation of the bond. If he mated with her as Cal, she would hate him when she found out he was Felicity. He placed a large hand on her shoulder and gently, firmly pushed her back. Tessa blinked, hurt flashing across her face. She pulled away instantly, cheeks flushing red. "I'm sorry," she stammered. I'm tired. I'm emotional. I shouldn't have—" "Tessa, stop!" Felicity stood up, putting distance between them. "It's not you. Trust me, it's not you. But I can't do this. Not tonight. He walked to the window, staring out at the darkness. Go to sleep. Take the bedroom. I'll take the couch. Tessa stood there for a moment, humiliated and confused. Okay. Good night, Cal. She retreated into the bedroom and shut the door. Felicity waited until he heard the bed springs creak. Then he went to the kitchen and pulled a loose floorboard up from under the sink. Beneath it was a satellite phone. He dialed a number he hadn't used in 6 months. It rang once. "Report," a sharp voice answered. "Marcus." "It's me," Felicity said. Silence on the other end. Then a shaky breath. "Alpha? We thought the signals were false. You're alive." "I'm alive, and I'm in the Idaho safe house. We're ready, Dom. The loyalists are scattered, but we're ready. Just give the word." "Get the team," Felicity ordered, his voice cold and kingly. "And bring the heavy artillery. We're taking back the Bennett territory. And Marcus?" "Sir, I have a guest. Handle her with care. She's the key to everything." The morning sun didn't bring warmth. It brought the sound of rotors. Tessa woke up with a start, her heart pounding. The sound of a helicopter was shaking the cabin. She threw off the covers and ran into the living room. "Cal, they found us!" The living room was empty. The front door was open. Tessa grabbed a heavy brass lamp from the table, a pathetic weapon, but better than nothing, and crept toward the door. She looked out. Her jaw dropped. A sleek, black military helicopter had landed in the small clearing in front of the cabin. But it wasn't attacking. Men were jumping out. 6 of them. They wore black tactical gear. But unlike the thugs who had attacked them on the road, these men moved with disciplined precision. On their shoulders they wore a patch, a silver wolf on a black field. The Royal Guard. Tessa's mind spun. Why was the King's Guard here? She saw Cal standing by the chopper. He was talking to a tall, blonde man, Marcus, presumably. But it was the body language that froze Tessa's blood. Cal wasn't cowering. He wasn't explaining. He was standing with his arms crossed, head high, issuing orders. The soldiers were listening with heads bowed. The blonde man handed Cal a jacket. It was a long, black trench coat with the same silver crest embroidered on the collar. Cal put it on. It fit him perfectly. It made him look larger, darker, regal. Tessa stepped out onto the porch, the brass lamp slipping from her fingers and clattering onto the wood. Every head turned toward her. The soldiers instantly snapped to attention. Not the casual alertness of mercenaries, but the rigid, respectful stance of guards facing royalty. Felicity turned slowly. He saw the look on her face, the shock, the dawning realization, the horror. He walked toward the porch. He didn't rush. "Tessa," he said. His voice was different now. The rough Cal twang was gone, replaced by the cultured, commanding baritone she had heard on news broadcasts years ago. "No," Tessa whispered, backing up until her back hit the cabin wall. "No, no, no. I told you I wasn't a criminal," he said softly, stopping at the bottom of the steps. "You're him," she breathed. "You're Felicity Blackwood." "I am. You lied to me." Her voice cracked. "In the motel, in the truck. Last night. You let me talk about you like you were a ghost. You let me make a fool of myself." "I did what I had to do to keep you alive," Felicity said, though his eyes showed regret. "If I had told you who I was in that motel, would you have trusted me? Or would you have run, thinking I was there to execute you for your brother's crimes?" "I trusted Cal," Tessa shouted, tears spilling over. "I trusted the man who held me while I was sick. I didn't trust the king." "They are the same man, Tessa." "No, they aren't." She shook her head violently. "The king is a politician. The king is the man who everyone is afraid of. Alpha. Marcus stepped forward, looking between them nervously. We're on a timeline. Jared knows we're in the area. We need to move. Felicity didn't look at Marcus. He kept his gaze locked on Tessa. Tessa, listen to me. Your brother has usurped the laws of our kind. He killed your father. He tried to kill you. I am going to end him today. Come with me. He held out his hand. It was the same hand that had given her water, the same hand that had saved her life. But now it felt like a summons, not an offer. Tessa looked at his hand, then at the soldiers and the helicopter. She felt small. She felt like a pawn in a game she hadn't realized she was playing. I don't have a choice, do I? She asked bitterly. There is always a choice, Felicity said. But if you stay here, you stay unprotected. If you come with me, you witness justice. Tessa wiped her face. She straightened her spine. She was a Bennett. She wouldn't cower. I'll come, she said coldly, but only because I want to see Jared pay. Not for you. Felicity's hand dropped. The rejection stung, sharp and deep, but he deserved it. Fair enough, he said. He turned to Marcus. Load up. We strike at sundown. The flight to the Bennett territory took an hour. The helicopter sat heavy with tension. Tessa sat on one side, strapped in, looking out the window. Felicity sat opposite her, reading intelligence reports on a tablet, but his eyes kept flicking to her. She was shutting him out, blocking the bond. It felt like a cold wall had been erected between them. Marcus leaned in, speaking over the headset. Sir, thermal scans show Jared has gathered the entire pack at the main estate. He's planning a mating ceremony tonight. Felicity's head snapped up. A mating ceremony? Who is the female? Marcus hesitated. Intelligence suggests he's trying to forcibly mate with a captive to solidify his bloodline claim. A neighboring Alpha's daughter. Sarah Miller. Tessa gasped, pressing the headset to her ear. Sarah? She's my best friend. She's only 19. Felicity's face went dark. The temperature in the helicopter seemed to drop 10 degrees. He's desperate, Felicity said. He knows his claim to the Alpha seat is weak because he killed his father. He thinks a mating bond with a high-blood female will make him untouchable. He's a monster, Tessa hissed. We land in 10 minutes, Felicity commanded. We don't wait for sundown. We go in hard. Marcus, take Alpha team to the perimeter. Disable the guards. I'm going in the front door. Sir, that's suicide, Marcus argued. Jared has 50 wolves. And I have the voice, Felicity said simply. And I have the right. He looked at Tessa. Stay in the chopper with the pilot. No, Tessa unbuckled her belt as they began their descent. This is my home. Those are my people. They won't attack me. I can get you close. It's too dangerous. You need me, Felicity, she said, using his name for the first time. It sounded foreign on her tongue. If you walk in there, they see an invader. If I walk in there, they see the rightful heir. They'll hesitate, and that hesitation will give you the opening you need. Felicity grit his teeth. She was right. Strategically, she was his best asset. Emotionally, he wanted to lock her in a tower where she'd be safe. Fine, he agreed. But you stay behind me. If I say run, you run. If I say drop, you drop. Deal. The helicopter touched down in the sprawling lawn of the Bennett estate. The rotor wash flattened the manicured grass. Before the skids even settled, the doors flew open. Alarms were already blaring from the house. Armed guards were pouring out of the front entrance. Felicity stepped out first. He didn't draw a weapon. He didn't shift. He simply walked onto the grass, his black coat billowing in the wind, his eyes glowing with a terrifying, ancient power. Tessa stepped out behind him. The guards froze. They raised their rifles, but they didn't fire. They were looking at Tessa. "Miss Bennet?" one of the guards shouted, confused. "We were told you were dead." "Jared lied!" Tessa screamed, her voice carrying over the wind. "He killed my father. He poisoned me. And now he's holding Sarah." Confusion rippled through the ranks. The guards lowered their weapons slightly. Then the front door of the mansion banged open. Jared stepped out. He looked like Tessa, dark hair, sharp features, but his face was twisted with malice. He was holding a girl, Sarah, by the hair, a knife pressed to her throat. "Don't listen to her," Jared roared. "She's a traitor. She brought an outsider to kill us all. Kill them. Kill them both." The guards hesitated. The Alpha Command was strong, forcing them to obey. But their loyalty to Tessa was fighting it. "I said fire!" Jared screamed, pressing the knife into Sarah's skin. A drop of blood ran down her neck. Felicity stepped forward. "Drop the knife, Jared," Felicity said. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. He used the voice. The Alpha King's voice. It hit everyone on the lawn like a physical wave of gravity. Several guards fell to their knees, their wolves instantly submitting to the apex predator. Jared flinched, but he didn't drop the knife. He was high on power and madness. "You," Jared sneered, squinting at Felicity. "I know you. You're the drifter, the corpse." "I am your king," Felicity said, taking another step. "And I am here to collect your debt." "I don't recognize you," Jared yelled. "I am Alpha here." He dragged Sarah backward. "Shoot him, or I swear I'll slit her throat right now." A shot rang out. It didn't come from the guards. It came from the roof. A sniper, a mercenary, hired by Jared, who had no loyalty to the pack and felt no submission to the king. Felicity saw the muzzle flash. He didn't dodge. He couldn't. Tessa was standing right behind him. If he moved, the bullet would hit her. He took the round. The bullet slammed into his chest, right where his heart was. "No!" Tessa screamed. Felicity stumbled back, collapsing onto one knee. Blood bloomed dark and fast on his white shirt. Jared laughed. "There, you see? He bleeds. He dies." "Felicity!" Tessa dropped to her knees, grabbing his shoulders. "Cal, get up!" Felicity looked up at her. His eyes were glazing over, but he smiled. A bloody, terrifying smile. "I'm not done," he rasped. He closed his eyes. And then the beast broke free. There was a sound like tearing metal. Felicity's body convulsed and exploded outward. Bones cracked and reformed. Fur black as midnight burst from his skin. In the span of a heartbeat, the wounded man was gone. In his place stood a wolf the size of a grizzly bear. Its eyes were burning copper. Its teeth were the length of daggers. The bullet wound on its chest was already steaming, healing before their eyes. The king had returned, and he was furious. Felicity's roar tore through the night like thunder made flesh. It shattered glass, froze the wind, and drove fear straight into the bones of every shifter on the Bennet lawn. He stood in his true form, midnight fur, burning copper eyes, and raw power radiating from every breath. The bullet wound in his chest sealed itself within seconds. Silver forced out by the strength of his blood, Jared stumbled backward, terror replacing the arrogance that had once fueled him. "Kill him!" he screamed. "Shoot the monster!" No one moved. The guards felt it. The ancient instinct to submit. Felicity Blackwood was not an enemy. He was Apex. To challenge him was to challenge nature itself. Realizing he stood alone, Jared shifted in panic. His russet wolf was large, dangerous even, but beside the king, he looked small. With a coward's desperation, Jared lunged, not at Felicity, but at Tessa. "Tessa!" Sarah cried. Tessa didn't run. She stood still, trusting the bond pulsing in her chest. A blur of black intercepted Jared mid-air. Felicity caught him by the throat, the impact echoing across the grounds. One sharp motion, one sickening crack. Silence. Jared's body fell to the grass. Felicity turned to the crowd, blood on his muzzle, and growled low. One by one they knelt. Only Tessa remained standing. The massive wolf faced her, rage fading into uncertainty. He waited. She walked toward him without fear. "Felicity," she whispered, reaching out. He lowered his head and pressed his nose into her palm. A soft whimper vibrated through her hand. The king, victorious, was asking her not to turn away. The following days passed in chaos. Jared's network was dismantled, the territory restored. Tessa helped the wounded, avoided Felicity, and wrestled with her anger and confusion. She missed Cal, the quiet man who had held her when she was weak. On the fourth night, he came to her door. "I'm not here as the king," Felicity said quietly. "I'm here because I love you." He admitted his fear, his lies, his longing to be ordinary, even for a moment. "I just wanted you to see me," he said. She studied him, seeing the lonely man beneath the crown. "What we had was real," she said softly, "and I'm not afraid of you." Relief broke through his eyes. She kissed him. 6 months later, beneath chandeliers and starlight, Tessa stood beside her mate at the coronation ball. Felicity held her close, no longer carrying his crown alone. They ruled together, not through fear, but through trust, love, and shared strength, one heartbeat at a time. And that, my friends, is the story of how one knock on the wrong door turned out to be the most right thing Tessa Bennett ever did. From a dying runaway to the queen of the shifters. Talk about a glow-up. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of drama, romance, and revenge, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and tells me you want more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. We have a spicy billionaire romance coming up next week that you do not want to miss. Thanks for listening. Stay wild, and I'll see you in the next story.